Following the teaching and understanding and the work of the last few weeks, we move on to the next step. We move on to the understanding of the totality further of our own lives, our own existence. And how we as people live this life. How we lived. This what I call in the English language schizophrenic life of one dimension of the physical and one dimension of energy. And when you understand this, then we are all beautiful people. It's just that we don't understand the extent of our beauty and how this beauty works, how this majestic system of the creation works within itself to connect with itself, and how man comes to understand the expansion of his totality. In the last week teaching, we spoke about hydrogen, and we spoke about what we call the carbon, and we spoke about the gravity and the dimension of the use of all the materials in this body, be it transportation or transmutation, and how this works. One in a physical dimension and one in the energy dimension. It was easy to understand that we all live what I call a schizophrenic life. Now we understand about our own schizophrenic, that we have a hydrogen carbon bond on one side. I hope this survey works. Is what we said about hydrogen and a carbon. And then we have the nitrogen and oxygen. I always explained this nitrogen and oxygen relationship with the physical life. It is interesting to, as a part of the studies, if you go back and go into some of the scientific research in some of the things you can test to confirm the gravitational field, or what we call the magnetic field, gravitational field of the, what we call the gaseous and the liquid side with oxygen, to be the same as the one which is with the nitrogen, which is connected to the iron, the physical side. We need the gravitation of both. If a plant is only gaseous, you only look at one element because there is no matter state solid in it. When you have a composite material state with no gaseous line on it, you look at the, what we call matter state connection of it to find life. In the scientific research, if you've done this, or if you ever knew, we confirm that oxygen behaves as a gravitational field, as a magnet into the liquid inside. How the scientists do this is very simple. You take a magnet in a way like this, and you apply a very high voltage in a way, and then you pour different liquid materials like nitrogen, like what you call anything you have as a liquid, and you find it just goes through, you don't see anything. But interesting enough, when it comes to hydrogen to oxygen, oxygen builds a bridge. It shows its gravitational characteristics, which is in a way in balance with the what we call the magnetic field of the earth, which connects it to nitrogen, as I explained last time. 4 times nitrogen gives you the iron, which gives you that magnetic field. But if you pour nitrogen in this gap, it will not go. But if you pour oxygen, you see a white cloud just sticks. It becomes like a matter state. So one of the confirmation for you to understand why and how physical confirmation that oxygen behaves like a magnet, like a gravitational fields on this planet for a what we call liquid and what we call gaseous state, is this test. So scientifically you can see it, that the what we call the fundamental understanding of the teaching is correct. So you have two magnetic field connecting. And this is the same with the hydrogen and carbon. Two magnetic field of the same connect. This is what is the beauty of the creation. So for you knowledge seekers, I know you do these things, go and get yourself a horseshoe magnet, specifically design it that it has a power, you can adjust it, and then pour some liquid oxygen. You see this cloud created, this connection created. And then you understand how nitrogen and oxygen have become the element of the amino acid of the man. Because one connects you to the physical side, the nitrogen, and one connects you to the liquid and the gaseous part. But this teaches you one further point, and that is, if the nitrogen side is 14 times 4, which gives you the 56, which is around the element of the iron, what does 16 times 4 give you? This is the limitation. This is the position of the limitation of the materials which can bring, connect, and be part of the life into this structure. You see zinc and you see copper. On the other hand, if you look at the different multiplication of the same, when you go to 14 times 3, it gives you 42. You did calcium and potassium. The same goes with the what we call the elements, to the multiplication of 1, 2, or 3 times the magnetic fields. Then you understand when you have and you connect into what we call 28s and 30s and 32s, because multiplication of the two. So it shows how the structure of the physicality on this planet is created. Link, strength, connection to the magnetic field of the planetary system. This is why we don't see life on planetary system which have no what we call atmosphere on the surface of them. But it doesn't mean that they don't have life inside. But all this is always connected to the world of the creation of the universe. Once you understand this in a full detail, in understanding of totality, the world of the creation, the world of science, becomes very easy to understand in a micro and macro. Universal life and a physical life. They're all connected. They are there. We have no choice. Now we understand it. And then we see, like when we add calcium to this, we get bone structure. We add potassium into this, we get field radiation and connected to some of the characteristics of it. But The next step for us to understand is to move away from the matter state and move in a dimension and a direction where the correction and what we call collection of the whole three brings a common denominator, maximum extent of the field strength of the soul. What does this mean? Once we find a common denominator, field strength, the same as what we did with magnetic fields here with the nitrogen and oxygen, between the carbon, nitrogen, and oxygen, because hydrogen is always there as a basic limit, as a starter point, then you find the field strength of the soul, the max, the maximum extension of the field, the strength of the soul, because then the soul and the soul of physicality all work within the first dimension with the same dimension. What does this mean? You need to bring a very, very strange but specific characteristic into this. I thought about this a couple of years ago in dimension of the work. But what is interesting is the beauty which this brings into play. If you bring and place in here, very simply, very straightforward, put 12, it's not the right color, let me get you a much darker color that you can see. Let's go for a blue. If we take this and we bring it in here somewhere in between and play a slightly different game and multiply 12 by 5, you get 60. Then you understand, if you go into the crystal structure, you find a common denominator why life is given crystal structure of the physicality. If you don't understand this, go back. You have carbon 12, carbon 14, and then you have carbon 60, which is crystal structure. But here at the same time, if you multiply carbon 14 by 4, which gives you the 56, you see how we are connected to both dimensions of the physical life and dimension of the universal life. '60 brings us the physical muscle tissue, copper. Is elusive greenish color with tints of green and red into it. But the interesting point is, when you bring carbon 14 into game and into play, in being equal or parallel to the nitrogen, this is where the bond is created. This is how the amino acid is created, connected to the physical dimension on the energy of carbon 12, and connected, giving it a physical structure as a crystal structure of the carbon 60 in the dimension of the universal line. Then you see how when you eat, when you absorb energy, you interact with the dimension of the soul. The emotion between the two sides. Understanding the positioning, understanding the conformation of the existence. If you understood this, if you take it a step further, you come to understand how to transmute. You come to understand what you need to transmute. Then you come to understand why we ever started the production of the gas, the very first gas we taught to you was CO2. Because you look at the gas in the material and the water you have. And I keep on telling you, look at the gas as the energy, which is the fields of the universe. If you take this and bring it into the play and bring it into interaction with the fields of the matter state of the life, then you understand how sugar, you call it CH3, plays the game on this side. Then you understand into the addictions, why you have the nitrogen and oxygen playing on this side. And then you understand where the emotion comes, we get addicted to. Abuse, sexually, psychological abuse, because we lock into one of these in connection to the amino acid. Look at all the alcohols, chemical combination. Look at all the narcotics. Look at the hormones which connect to your sexual behavior, connects to your emotional behavior. And then, if you understand this, you have learned the game of the creation. Then, when we are told in the deep space there is a star which has this chemical composition on its atmospheric condition and such a composition in its matter ground state, it'd be easy for us to calculate what life and what amino acid exists in this combination. We don't need to be there to feel it. We can create it in a fish tank, as I call it. And then add part of the amino acid of your soul part into it, and you see the manifestation of the physicality in the fish tank. Then you know how you will look when you arrive at the point of the time, destination, and the place. But what again we see, what again we understand from the world of science of today, the astronomers and the cosmologists tell us this planet is this, then it takes so many million light years or thousands of light years to go to it, you say, rubbish. Because you understood the composition of the creation of the connection in this level of life. And once you do that, transmutation is instantaneous. There is nowhere in the universe that the life exists without connection to the hydrogen, or what we call magnetic field of the fundamental element. Magnetic field of fundamental element, which is the one of the proton and one of the electron, which is a twinity, is the cornerstone of the creation. The creator amitra, hydrogen, electron, and a proton. We changed the name of mitra to to electron, where we kept the creator as proton. But in essence, the origin is when you put them together, you get the totality of the creation, which is neutron. And in a plasma, you have a neutron because the two are together. And this is where the knowledge of the man lacks understanding of the creation. When you look at element of hydrogen in its totality, you look at the totality of the creation, because that's what the neutron is. Fundamental element. as an energy, when you look at it as encapsulating field at the atmosphere of the proton neutron, the proton electron, you see neutron, you see the creation, you see the neutron. And if you understand this, you understand again the same game repeating itself again and again and again and again, but man does not see this. If you play it in the dimension of, if you look at this in a very simple way, you have a hydrogen and you have a carbon. In the present world, we call it 13 and 15, depending on energy, not on molecular structure. 13 being hydrogen plus carbon 12, 15 being carbon plus carbon 14. Because you live two lives, now you have to consider both from now on. But interesting enough, if you put the nitrogen and oxygen together, you have a 14 and a 16. So you have a very straightforward combination of 30. Then you see what this means. How much we live in the dimension of connection to our soul. And then, even if you multiply this by 2, you find the parameters of the minimum you can live, you can interact, and you can create a life combination. Then you see how your emotion of physicality is connected to the emotion of the soul. Because this guy is a traveler, he travels the universe, and this guy is connected to physicality, is heavier, he has to get stuck with. Then you find out why, when you take certain elements, when you breathe it in, when you put it in your mouth, playing this game will affect this, and you call it hallucination, you call it dream. Then you understand, by controlling the amount of oxygen and amount of nitrogen you take in your breathing, you can control your speed of travel, your transmutation. Or you combine the two together on a carbon 60, you can float, because you create your own dynamic of what we call crystal structure. When you look at the nitrogen being 60% of the air of this planet, elements of the what you breathe, and then you play with the oxygen, which is around about 15-16%, then you understand how your breathing has become part of your life, connecting, feeding your soul for your part of what we call schizophrenic life. The whole problem goes back again in the misunderstanding, in fallacy of what we call science. Look at the life. Just go on the internet and look what this percentage of the oxygen in the atmosphere we breathe. Look at the connection with the nitrogen. 4-1. Isn't this what we saw, the gravitational magnetic field of the physical earth needed. Then you start seeing the intriguing way that the field matter states create, connect to the energy state of the field. Then, in reality, by breathing the air, we connect to gravitational magnetic field matter state of this planet. This is why when we go out of this atmosphere, become breathe, we die, because our connection with the gravitational matter state of this field is disconnected. As long as we keep the oxygen, which is connected by matter of the dimension and direction to carbon 15, what we call a combination of the hydrogen and a carbon 14, we can survive anywhere in the universe. We don't need the matter state nitrogen of the position, time, and place. This is how where you arrive, you live on the dimension of the carbon 14 with connection to the creator, the line. That connection creates its own composition. You remember the way we said interaction of the fields creates mass, and the interaction of that field package with another package of the environment gives you the weight. It's the same process. It's the same understanding. Then this brings you to a very interesting point and very interesting part, and that is how we go to the next step, how we add to understanding of new condition of the matter, and how we have not understood this connection of the air we breathe. They tell you so wrongly, when you stop taking oxygen, you die, and they give you the oxygen. If they put a mixture of the connection of the nitrogen with oxygen in a specific way, in the time of when you breathe, you can connect to your soul. This is why some people say, I've seen the light, I died, because at that point the combination fits into it. This is why some people, by breathing, can feed themselves. They connect to that carbon 15. They connect to that combination of carbon 15, which is addition to the universal line, which is a carbon 14 plus 1, which is a 15. You're connected to universal energy. Why do you kill to read? If you know how to do it, by changing the level of oxygen in your body connected to the physicality of this planet on the nitrogen within your amino acid, you created the black hole of the energy of the universe. Any energy you want, you tap into. Then this brings you to a new understanding. You remember, I've repeated this many times before, when the Indian group came to the Keshe Foundation and they were flat on the floor with him kissing his foot because so many times he could not eat for 20 odd days, and this magic, the guy found out how to change through breathing to this energy level to tap into. And if he could teach that to his followers, no one would have eaten anything, no one would have killed for. But there is another dimension into this, because it's field interaction. Your universal energy of understanding intellect and your physical intellect is the same. It has access to both at the same time. But you have to understand how it works, how you can tap into the universal knowledge, how you interact with it, the way you use the oxygen breathing to connect with universal energy to feed. How do you connect to universal intellect? that you can take the information, as we say, downloading. This comes to another point. This comes to another side of the what we call, we've shown you the graphs. You have a physical life. You have a solar physicality with the energy packs of the matter state, which is connected to the nitrogen. And then you have the universal line of energy. Which, what does this mean? In reality, this means you don't need to do much. In this process, you got to understand how you connect to the hydrogen, to the carbon, to nitrogen, and to oxygen. In this process, how does it work? This gives you very interesting, very intriguing combination. What this combination is, let's draw it like this. Let's take it off, that I can do it for you much easier. No. You have intriguing position of this. As much as I know you like yellow, if I can get hold of the yellow, which picture of the sun. On this end, you're dealing with the physicality. And on this side of it, you're dealing with a solar physicality, which sits between the two. But this solar physicality, in the interaction between the two, finds itself on the side of the physical life. But it opens a position in a dimension of emotion, which both share. And this is where we connect through our emotion to the Creator. Muhammad, blessed his name, said, if you read the whole Quran, you find 100 attributes of the Creator. These are the emotions of the Creator, not the physicality and his behavior. Kindness is emotion. Giving is an emotion. Forgiveness is an emotion. Kindness is an emotion. And then if you understand this, you know how to control and how to use the emotion of love and to move on from one to another. You use the emotion of everything which is the beauty. You cannot take, because these two are set, you cannot change. Either side of the equation is balanced all the time. It just depends what the spectrum of the energy of which we interact to create what emotion in this common ground. Go back to the teaching all the time. I said the emotion in the physical life is the same as emotion in the soul. Now you know this is your soul. Now you understand why the position of the soul of the man is black in color within your MRI, within your scans. You have carbon. In the dimension of the universe. This is why our universe is dark. Looks black. Elusive black. Because the interaction of the energy of the Creator as hydrogen and in interaction with the combination of the carbon creates that elusiveness of the color of black. Try it in the lab, you will understand. Then You understand how the system works. Then you understand how you use the emotion in the essence of the soul to convert into emotion in the essence of the physicality. This is why when we dream of the mom, we feel that emotion in our physical condition and wake up and remember, because we sit in this. Then you understand how the soul of the man, the physicality of the man connected to the physical characteristics of this planet, is connected to the life in the universe. Because when you connect to another creature in the universe, you connect through this, not through this or through this. In a physical life, we connect through this and bit of this, we call it love, and we generate children of it. In the world of the creation of the universe, it's more or less the same. But you have to understand what emotion in what environment and with whose love you're playing. You play with the love of the creator, you're in it. You see the light. You see, you get access to the knowledge of the creation. Then you find out you are part of that light. You are part of that knowledge. And there is nothing to be proud of, because you are common amongst all the others. You are part of the creation. Then our men on this world fight for how much of this, in what combination they put on their crown. They call themselves kings, diamonds, crowns, and the rest of it, and the presidents. And this is a question which comes down to, what are we fighting for on a dimension of physicality, when in essence we have access to the dimension of the creator? How long will it take man to come to understand this? And how long will it take man to understand this as a whole? Then you understand what life is about. The whole process of your life, your ancestors, the creator is on this page. Then it comes to the point that if you understand each part of this knowledge on the screen, what are we fighting? And how can we use our soul to connect to the universal community than our physical world? And how to change the course of the humanity by connecting to what I call common denominator structure of the universe. The problem in most of the world of creation comes in this part. And this is the part which we have a huge problem with. And this is where we sit with problems. Because we haven't understood this, we run in problem with this, and we have a bigger problem with this. I made man in the image of myself. And in reality, is this my image? Is this what I want? This is what I want to produce. This is what I've taken further to understand about myself. And if we understand this process, if we have the intellect to decipher the knowledge of the creation between its element of time, place, and position, and a constant point of reference, then we can create any life anywhere in the universe. All we need is to understand the emotion, which is common denominator between the two. And this is why in all the teachings, I keep on explaining and I keep on referring to giving the love. If you find that energy level, which is not difficult, many have achieved, then you can transmute to this dimension or you can transport to this dimension. The love of Creator, the love of knowledge, the love of becoming a knowledgeable creator, then you can create anything. You can access to the knowledge of the universe. One abuse, and you're back to start point. Now, you understand more about yourself. You understand more about your own creation scientifically, not by, I breathe, I can fast 21 days, I can become illuminated, I can see the light. You can all do all of it. Now you know which one of these fours you have to play with. And if you become good enough to play with this one, you find the path to your creator. You find path to the source. You find path to beauty of this, as in the world of matter, you call it the electron and a proton. And in the world of energy, we call him the fundamental element, which is energy itself. In a matter state, you look inside. In the world of creation, we look from outside to see what. And if you understand what I said, you have found a way to every position dimension in the universe. Because when it comes to the universe, you have a different gameplay, which is very easy. What does this mean? It means, again, cannot be any different. The source of the universe in its structure is connected to a specific, what you call, fundamental energy of element, which is in the center. You call it the hydrogen of the universe, the fundamental energy of the creation. And then you have all the universes which work within to create, connect to the same point. Those who gather this knowledge to reach to the fundamental energy, to the fundamental source, will understand the totality of the world of creation. Does not matter in which position, time, and space they manifest themselves. We have called it hydrogen. We have called it a neutron. But in fact, is the essence of the totality on its own of the whole creation. Where again, the black hole as a center sits as a proton, and the universes and unicosmos and the galaxies become that electron. If one day man looks from a distance and be able to see through this universe, you will see exactly what you see in the structure of an element. One center point and many electrons as galaxies within and around it. but in a bigger dimension. When you look at electron in a combination structure of physicality of an element, that electron is a galaxy. It has so many elements inside it. Then you understand there is no difference in the world of the creation in all its dimensions. It's for you to understand the essence of the interaction of the fields and understand fields in motion means creation of energy, life. And then you understand why it says, I made man in the image of myself. As long as I give it energy, the man runs, the man lives. And that man, to be given energy, needs to take from the environment the energy which I've created for it to live. Stand outside a fish tank and look at the fish. That tank is his universe. And that fish inside opens his mouth continuously, not taking the water in, but taking the energy from its environment, which is embedded in that water. And then change that fish with a man. And then you change the environment, make it more acidic, make it more salty, make it more sweet, and see what kind of fish you get. You change from the sweetwater fish into the saltwater fish, then you will be the fish that you can live in an acidic environment, but you need different tentacles than the others. And then you see how man will change in space by changing those elements of his environment. Then you see how you look in a space when you land in that affirmation of confirmation of the environment you land in. The soul in the center does not change, but the manifestation of the physicality changes to suit the environment. You cannot put a fish from the sweet water in the salty water. It cannot adapt unless it has the preset system for, but it can adapt if it travels through the dimension of its soul. It'll take the manifestation of the soul of the physicality of the salt water. Maybe you understand the terminology used as a mermaid, but then that comes in both the split dimension of the soul and the soul of physicality and the physicality of the manifestation. As knowledge seekers, today's teaching should have brought to know yourself more, to understand how you connect to your environment and how your environment creates the emotion that allows you to be the travelers of the universe. It's you who decides which way I go. I change my breathing, I change my structure, I can change part of the absorption of the energy. But in totality, you have to come to understand one thing. In your amino acid dimension, which is the nitrogen and oxygen and hydrogen and carbon, you have to understand how to reach to that carbon 60 energy fields to be able to reach to manifestation of the energy field common diameter of the universe and created by its own dimension and characteristics. We looked at multiplication. But sometimes you have to look at subdivisions. This life is the basic fundamental energy transfer units of the universe. Does not mean that you always live within a structure, but sometimes you can use this structure into its lower order of elements to create what we call the fundamental steps in creating energy fields, which allows the soul of the man to interact in certain conditions with a dimension of his physical condition to create life in sub-subliminal, in a way sub-existing in a dimension of the universe. And then you understand this kind of life finds faster access to the dimension of the creation than this kind of life. One day I explain. It's not that everything has to be multiplication of the environment created. In position is a subdivision of. And this kind of life exists in empty space of the universe man looks at. And is more of them than more of them. And this is, if one day you understand, creation of life in the span of the universe is the same. I hope I open your eyes to the truth about yourself and your existence in the dimension of the creator and the creation. And one day, if you understand this, you will understand it's easy to work and easy to live. Because no matter where you are, as long as you understand the connection between your position and your origin. Because at the end, the nitrogen and oxygen comes from the interaction of this itself in different shapes and formation. If this is hard to understand, I'll bring you another point for you to understand more. You look at CH3, the original sugar, the original essence of life. 15. You take common denominator between these two. And you see why nitrogen feeds the amino acid. And then you understand why the basic sugar works within the structure. Because now it has a common denominator to feed both. Soul of the man in the dimension of the universal level and to the physicality of the man in the dimension of matter state. Then you understand why when you drink alcohol, you touch the realms of the dream and going to the other side. Alcohol is a combination of sugar and a carbon. When it takes you through more in the dimension of the hydrogen and carbon, physicality has to follow. It has no sense of direction of the emotion of it. You tittle tattle because the physicality tries to follow the images of the fields of the universal energy. And then you wonder, would I like to be always drunk? Yes, but drunk with the love of the creator and not drunk with the alcohol of the man. And if you understand this, you will understand there is nothing that man can do except understand the process of his own creation to be able to reach to his creator. And as always said, beautifully by Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is the gift of the Creator. If the man understands his giving, his beauty, his essence, and now man understands. It will take men of science years after I've gone for them to understand the teaching of today. And for those who understand, will get access to the world of the creation instantaneously, because then they know how to manipulate between this side and that side and how to go. And you don't need to push it, because it pushes you to that dimension. I hope you understood from today's work the totality of the understanding of the work of the man. And I hope that in you understanding this as a whole, you have found the secret to the world of creation. Thank you very much for today. And I hope sincerely, one day in the science of and scientist of the man will take this page and study it for centuries to come, to understand how, where, how we look, how we'll come, how we'll shape, what he calls a dream and what he calls a reality. But the dream is the reality of the universe, and the understanding of the man with reality is in dimension of the understanding of the universe. We call it the dream. It's emotion, it's feels, and it's understanding. We go for a small break and we come back, and I hope what I've taught you for past 10 years has brought you and was planned to bring you to this point of understanding. I hope you understood. As you see your emotion, the line, the connection to your creator, and the games magnetic fields plays, and with it, how you can become part of the creator and the creation at the same time.